Oh, this is a part two of Harmsen's family history, his life history.
Okay, as I said in my part one, that I had 4 years of a great time. It was 24 to 28 in East Lansing, Michigan, because I worked summer jobs and I had money and I was interested in a lot of stuff. And I had access to the local center. Now, here's the interesting point. Because I'd taken I had to register every semester. And so what happened is I come to register, and then I was told that I could not register because I had gone over the number of credits you could have, and they wouldn't let me register. And this is a true story now. They wouldn't let me come back and be a student, even to take one class, which is 3 credits. And so I had to get something else. So I was looking for jobs, and so there was something posted, and it was a three. Now listen carefully. It was a 3-year program coming out of Washington D.C. 3 years. It was a joint teacher corps program. The teacher corps was normally 2 years, but they were saying you spend 1 year in teacher corps, and then you spend 2 years in Peace Corps in a foreign country. And they didn't tell you what country it was because Peace Corps would decide where you went. And so I applied for it. Now this is the interesting point, that I wanted to graduate because I had to be a graduate. I had to be a graduate to be part of teacher corps. Well, I had to go see one of the bureaucrats, and he said, well, okay, we'll allow you to go to one class and then you've got to graduate. You can't stick around anymore. Because I'd been there several years, about 4 years enjoying myself. So I took one class, and then I passed the one class, and so then I graduated. And if I remember right, that was 1968 or 69, I can't remember which. I graduated. Well, I applied to this program, and then it came out of Washington, D.C., and I applied by telephone. Well, then they called me back, and because I had a phone number, and they said, well, you have been rejected because we're going to give it to another man. Now listen carefully. The man that we're going to give it to was a man that was a industrial arts teacher. That means a Bachelor of Science degree in education to teach 8 areas of regular, working class stuff. And so he applied, and we're going to give it to him, and you're number 2. He's number 1. So we said we'll keep you there in case something happens. Well, this is life now. Well, then I got a call later, sometime later, not too much later. They said, well, this man has rejected it, and you are the only. Listen carefully. You are the only person that is left. Me. There's only 2 people that applied, him and me. So he's gone. So you got the job. And so it's a 3-year program. So then you're going to spend 1 year at the Buffalo State University in Buffalo. That was the education school. And you'll be teaching, you'll be assisting in the high school, and you will then have the night class. And so after 1 year, then you're going to go to South Korea. And that's the number 1 country, South Korea. And then the second one, if that falls through, we're going to send you to Tunisia, which is part of a country in North Africa, which later I visited myself. I visited years later. And so I said, okay, I accept. And so then I was going to go to Buffalo, New York for 1 year. And then from there I was going to go to South Korea. So I spent my time, and I was a student, okay, because what happened is during the daytime I was in high school, and then at night I had night classes in education, industrial arts education. Now that was eight different areas of what you had to do. One of them was computer stuff, and I did that. Now here's the interesting point. While I was there in the teacher corps program, and it was called Lackawanna School, because it was in the city of Lackawanna, south of Buffalo. So what happened then, we were there, and had about 10 of us. There were 10 of us. And then we were going to go with a group of other people that were going to go into the regular education, and we were only 10, and they had about something like 50 other people. And so we were going to go be in the Korea. There would be 49, Peace Corps Korea, 49 in South Korea. But we were only 10 people. So here's the important point. Then they got notification that they wanted to see one of the members of the Peace Corps, Teacher Corps program, ours, had to demonstrate that by teaching a lesson. They had to make a video. Well, here's what is really funny now. Most of those people in there knew a lot of stuff. They knew how to do all this mechanical stuff, but they were not very good at talking. They were the people that would fix your stuff, and they would take care of your cars and all this other stuff. It was all industrial stuff. It was not intellectual stuff. So you can imagine what happened. Of the 10 people, I was about the only one that actually could talk. And I could talk because this was what I had to do when I was in the military. And so they had a video there, and they made a video of me teaching a lesson, somewhere maybe 30 minutes or 40 minutes, I don't even remember anymore. And they sent it off to the bureaucrats, and it was called Department of Education in Washington, D.C. Well, they accepted us then because I was okay. The other people didn't want to do it because they didn't know how to do it, which is normal, because they were not intellectual, and I was the only person that could actually talk. So then I got selected, and then I took it, and then they had a special training session in San Francisco for several days, and then they sent us over to Korea. So we had about, roughly about 50 people, something like 40 middle school teachers. Most of them were middle school teachers in Korea. They'd be middle school people. And then about 10 of us. Well, this is again is life. A couple of people just decided they didn't want to go. So we were down to 8 people instead of 10. And so then they added 2 extra guys that had some regular training. I'm talking about training, meaning industrial arts. So we came over as 10 people, and then with these other 50 people. And so we come into Seoul, and then we had to go through training and stuff like that in Seoul and like that. And then after that, I got sent to this was the name of it, Rural Vocational Training Institute in Korea. And it was in Chuncheon, which is about 2 hours east of Seoul. Now, some of them went to high school. They went to it's called technical high school, where they were in Korea, that they would be assisting in training people. But see, in my group of people, because we were down to something like 10 people, and I was about the only one. I was about the only one that didn't have a lot of training in industrial arts, and that's what they called it in the United States. And I had a degree in social science, and that meant you had to have 3 majors in social science. You had history and anthropology and psychology. Those are the 3 parts to get my bachelor's degree. It was a BA in what you call liberal arts. And so what happened then is we had that, and they selected me, and because I was probably the least qualified, I'm talking about in industrial arts, fixing machines and fixing bikes and doing all this stuff, I went to the Rural Vocational Training Institute in Korea, and I was in Chuncheon. Now we're talking about Korea in a moment. At that time in Korea was very, very poor at that time. That's why you had Peace Corps, was basically sending volunteers, and they got this is what the volunteers got. They got a little bit of money in the local country wherever they were to take care of their expenses, and they got a certain amount for every month when you finish after roughly 2 years. It was 2 years. I think it was something like $150 or something. I don't even remember exactly. I think it was $150. But you only get that money when you finish. So you don't make a lot of money. So they sent me to this Rural Vocational Training Institute in Chuncheon. And so, well, it was in Korea. And so it wasn't very difficult. And so I enjoyed my time in Chuncheon. And then in the second year I was there, I met a young woman. I met a young woman who wanted to meet a foreigner. And she had a friend. Now, this is who the young woman was. I have explained in a moment. She had graduated from French language and literature at a university down in Daegu. And then I got asked by a Peace Corps volunteer and to go to some place, and then I met her. And she didn't. Now, the interesting point is she spoke French and Korean, but she did not speak English. But, there's always a but, she understood English, but she didn't speak it because she didn't have opportunity. And so I met her, and then we started dating, and you probably guessed what I'm going to say now. Eventually we married, and that was your mother, Young Suk Park. And so she spoke Korean, obviously, and then she spoke French, and then she learned how to speak English with me. And eventually your mother became extremely successful in Korea. And she became successful as a speech person. And what she was interested in is future studies. Now, this is life again. What had happened was that you had a magazine called Future, I think, called Future. And it was by the Future Society in the United States. And it had headquarters in Washington, D.C. And it was in English, and she read English. And she saw it, she wanted to look at it, and she got interested in it. And then she decided she was interested in future studies. Now we're switching from me to your mother. And then she graduated, and she also, during that time period, got a master's degree from University of Southern California when we were living in Seoul, and I was doing English teaching, because at that time, well, I have to back up a moment. At that time, when you finished the 2 years of regular Peace Corps, a lot of people had to decide what to do. And so if they went back to the U.S., it was extremely difficult getting a job in the U.S. at that time, because they had been abroad for 2 years after graduation. And some of the people came back and visited us and gave us stories about how horrible it was trying to get a regular job. And so I decided, when I was still in Peace Corps, that I wasn't going to leave Korea, because I was much older now. Remember, I came to Korea when I was 28 or 29, and I did not have a good work history in the United States. If I went back to the United States, nobody's going to hire me, because they say, okay, what's your experience? Well, I've been in Peace Corps for 2 years. Well, what'd you do before that? Well, I was studying. I got the equivalent of 5 years of study at Michigan State University. And I actually got interested in another one, which was called political science. And so I knew I didn't have much of a future. So I decided I was going to stay in Korea and become an English teacher, because you had basically 3 possibilities when you finished your 2 years of Peace Corps service in Korea. Number 1, you could stay and work for a Korean company. Number 2, you become an English teacher. Or number 3, you go back to the United States and try to get a regular job. And I just told you that people that went back to the States were having a horrible time getting a job, because they'd spent 2 years in Peace Corps, and a lot of people in the U.S. would say, well, you wasted 2 years. You wasted 2 years. So I decided I'd stay, and so I worked at Yonsei Foreign Language Institute. And Foreign Language Institute, this is in Korea now, in Seoul, was not for the students, it was for other people. It was for business people. And basically you had the classes at night, because these people were regular working people and wanted to learn English for their jobs. And so you had I did a lot of afternoon and evening classes. And so I did that. I became an English teacher. And I didn't become an English teacher because I was interested in teaching English so much, but I decided I'm not going back to the States, because it's going to be difficult for people to hire me. They say, what do you do? You're 29 years old. What do you do? Well, actually, no, I went to Korea. I was 31. They're going to say, what'd you do? And I said, well, I did this and Peace Corps and stuff like that. And I learned a lot of stuff, and they weren't interested. So this is the interesting point now of how I ended up. And so I was teaching at Yonsei FLI, Foreign Language Institute, and then there was one woman that came back from a place called Ohio University. That's not Ohio State University, but Ohio University. Ohio State University is in Columbus, about 50,000 students, and Ohio University was about 20,000 students, 15 in a small town about 1 hour south of the capital of which is Columbus, of Ohio. And she came back, and she came back after 2 years. She finished her master's degree. Now, I mentioned that because Korea at that time. Young-suk.
What?
How much? Tell me the time.
Oh, you can have more. We can have a part 3, no problem.
Okay. So what happened, the woman came back and she said, well, the Peace Corps, this is Peace Corps now in Washington, D.C., now is offering it's called scholarship program, which means they will pay your tuition and your fees, and will give you some living, it's called a living expense, if you are accepted in this program at Ohio University. And it's a 1-year program. Now, at that time, this is important now, at that time, most master's degree program, it was a master's degree, MA, was about 2 years program. 2 years, and it was 1-year program. Now, again, this is life now. The problem in Ohio University is you had a division there. It's called Southeast Asian Studies Center, Southeast Asia Studies Major. And they had a problem getting students. Now, we're talking now about everybody sort of has their own situation. So what happened in Peace Corps was offering a scholarship for 1 year. It was 12 months now, 1 year. And it was talking about the regular 9 months, and then you had a summer session. Summer session is up to you if you want to do it or not. So they would pay for 12 months of studying at Ohio University. Well, I was getting a little bit tired of Yonsei, because the problem was Yonsei was charging the students there, who were business people, very, very high tuition. But the tuition, very high, like I said. But the pay, and they were not basically Yonsei students, they were business people. You're charging them a lot of money, but again, their companies would pay that. And so what happened is, I thought, well, I want to move out because the pay at FLI is very, very low. But, now again, there's another but. Korean government has decided that if you want to become an English teacher in a regular university in the Department of English, you must have a master's degree, MA degree. You could even have MS. If you don't have a master's degree, we will not hire you in the college, in the university. And so I thought, well, I talked to the woman, and she was talking about it, and she was saying, this is what it is. I just finished a program of 1 year, and this is what it is. So I talked to her, and I said, okay, you want to give me a recommend? You had to have 3 recommendations. You want to give me a recommendation? And so she recommended me, and then I got 2 other recommendations from somebody, a couple of Koreans. I can't remember who it was anymore. And I sent it off, and I got accepted. Now, here's where the interesting point is. I was working at Yonsei FLI, and I had a night class, and I finished it at about, 9:30 or something like that. And then that was my mailing address, Yonsei FLI, and I got a letter from Ohio University accepting me. But here's the important point now. It must be done before the end of this week. This is Friday now. So I thought, well, I only got a few hours to take care of this. So I went off to the Korean post office, and then I sent it out. Well, I actually when they accepted me, okay, they told me, so you're accepted, and then this is your deadline to accept or reject our offer. They offered it to me and gave me time. So I actually had sent the recommendations, 3 recommendations. And so I go with a friend of mine, drove me to the post office, and I said, very short, at that time, you basically did a telegram. I sent a telegram to him. I said, I accept. Received your letter today, and I accept. So I've been accepted. And so I thought, well, that takes care of that. So Young Suk and I were going to go to the place, and it was going to be a 1-year program, which is about a 9-month program. And the reason they did that is the professors had done their, called field work to get their PhD, and they all of them done their field work in Indonesia, not Korea, Indonesia. And so they were trying to increase their student number. And so what happened is I got accepted, and then I did 9 months there, and then I actually spent another summer session studying Indonesian language. It was Indonesian language. So I got to my 12 months in. And so I enjoyed it. It was a great time. Now, again, remember, this is not Ohio State University. This is Ohio University, about 15,000 on main campus. And so then I had a chance to get a job. And I went back to Yansei, there for a short time, few months. And then I applied for a job at a place called Korea University in Kodae, Korea University. And I got accepted because I had the master's degree. And then I started teaching there. Now, here again, this is the bureaucracy and how all things work. Now, the Korean government said, listen carefully, the Korean government says, now, if you are a foreigner there, and you're going to teach a foreign language, and they had, they had Chinese and Japanese and English and French, and at the Korea University. Obviously, I was applying only for English. And there was a new policy. The policy is in the Korea now, in Korea, the country, is you can only stay 9 months. Because if you spend 10 months, then the university is required to give you lifetime employment. Notice what I just said. Lifetime employment. So if you had 10 months, then you become a permanent member, even no matter what you are. If you're a graduate student or something else, a foreigner, that you are a permanent member until you retire at age 65. And so what happened is I knew that was it. So I figured, I can go and I spend some time there, and I got 9 months, and then I can move to another university. So I had a good time at Ohio University. I had a great time. And I'll talk about your mother in a moment. And great time, and I came back, and I worked at Korea University for 9 months, and then I left it. And then I'm going to stop here a moment. Young Suk, what time?
Plenty of time, no problem.
Okay, so this is it. So after 9 months at Korea University, I knew it was coming because of all the stuff people were talking about. 9 months and you're going to get fired, and that was normal. And that was because of the...
It's not 9 months, it's 9 years.
No, it was 9 months at that time. 9 months, not 9 years. Because you only work 9 months and then you get fired. So you got to think about that. And so I decided I was going to try to get a job at another university. So I'd been at Yansei, and then I'd been at Kodae, and I was looking around, and there was a place called Myungji University. I worked 9 years at Korea University. 9 years. I say months?
Yeah.
Okay, it was 9 years. You're going to work 9 years. It's years, not months. So after 9 years at Korea University, I had to get another job. So And that was because the government said that. The universities did not want to have the foreigner hang around until he retired at age 65. And so I was checking around, and then I saw a place called Myungji University. And it was a much lower university, not a high grade. Yonsei was number 2. In Korea, it was Seoul National number 1. Yonsei was number 2, regular university. And then Korea University was number 3. Well, Myungji was much, much lower. Well, I didn't care about that. I just interested in the job because I didn't feel like I didn't want to leave Korea. Now, during that time, your mother she came in. Now, this is your mother. She came with me, and we came in, and she was going to, listen carefully, she was going to get a part-time job and work, as a waitress or something like that while I went to school. And then she found out they had a lot of opportunities at Ohio University. She said, forget it, I'm not going to work as a waitress. I'm going to do something else. Now, in the United States system, university system, they have something called visiting student. Visiting student. And a visiting student, and this is across the whole country, it means you can be a regular person and pay tuition, but you do not have to be a registered regular student. You're just continuing. Continuing student means you have the permission of each individual professor to sit in on the class or participate in the class with the professor. But there is no record of it, no examination. You just sit in and you learn. So your mother came in and said, I'm not going to become a waitress. I'm going to do this continuing education. So this is the interesting point. Your mother was going around and doing all kinds of stuff. And she was doing French. She did French language, and then she did photography, and then she did, this is what I remember, photography, and then, motion pictures, and some other stuff I don't even remember anymore. And it was free. It was free because, I think it was free. They may have paid a little bit of money, if there could have been a little bit of money, but the whole point was, it was for people that wanted to learn a lot, and then you had no record. Now you got to remember that Athens, Ohio, which is about 1 hour southeast of the capital of the state of Ohio, and I forget Columbus was the capital, and it was on the edge of Appalachia, which means a poor area in the United States, right on the edge of it. So she found out she can do all kinds of stuff, and she did all kinds of stuff. And she was interested mainly in French and photography and filmmaking. So I'm doing the regular stuff, and I'm getting evaluated and stuff like that. I got out. Now listen carefully. I was considered one of the top. When I'm getting ready to finish after it'd be 1 year, because it was only 1 year course. I was interested in another place in Norway. Norway basically they were offering a program of history and law in Norway, the country of Norway. So I thought about that. I wanted to do that. So I got a recommendation. This is to you now. I got a recommendation from one of the professors, and he said I was one of the top 2 or 3 students in the department. Now, again, the department was very small, maybe about 25, 30 people, I forget. And he gave me a really good recommendation. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And I said, well, to your mother, I said, well, I got this recommendation to go into Norway and become a student in Norway. And your mother said, can you guess what your mother said? I'll let you think about it for a moment. She said, no. My family needs some money, so you'll come back to Korea with me. So I come back to Korea, and so that's what I did. Came back to Korea. And so the whole point is then stayed in Korea, and I got a job at Myungji University. And at Myungji University, there's no limitation on working. no limitation on working. So you can work till you retire, and the retirement age then was age 65. So I retired at Myeongji at age 65, which is mandatory. This is in Korea now. This is the Korean law. Everybody, every unit, well, you had two thoughts. Government officials and government officials and people in education all must retire at age 65. Now, that's about the same age that you retire in the United States, even from private companies, age 65, you retire. So I understood that. So going back to when I was having my interview with Myeongji University, they had three professors there. Two of them had a master's degree from the United States, and then they had a PhD from Korea University. And then one guy there had a bachelor's degree from the University of Connecticut and a master's degree from the University of Connecticut and a PhD from the University of Connecticut, which is very unusual. Then the question is, why does he have 3 university degrees from the same place? Well, very simple, because his father was a Korean exchange professor. That means exchange professor, you go from one country to another country, and then you will be hired there for as long as they want you to teach. So his father was a professor there, and so he got a chance to be admitted to the University of Connecticut in 3 different programs, and he was actually a very, very smart guy. But there's always a but again. We come back to that key word. But he came back to Korea with a PhD from the University of Connecticut, and he had difficulty getting a job. And he was a very smart guy. Why did he get difficult getting a job? Well, in Korea, personal relations is very, very important. So people in Korea didn't know who he was because he didn't do any of his university work. So he finally got a job at Myeongji. And so he's at Myeongji, and then I'm getting interviewed. And you had the second floor of a Koreana hotel, downtown Seoul. And that's where the families, particularly mothers, were meeting to try to marry their children, their sons and daughters. And it was very, very famous. So we had a meeting. This is Myeongji now. We had a meeting there, and I'm sitting at the table with these 2 guys who had been to the States for masters, and then him, and they couldn't decide if they want to hire me. Now, this is Korea again. Well, the previous guy they had was pretty horrible. Horrible guy. Horrible, terrible guy. Well, he had a 1-year contract, and then he fired him. And so they're very cautious about who they're going to hire the next person. They don't know who I am. I've been at Kodae. They know I've been at Korea University for 9 years. But they're not certain they want to hire me. Well, now listen carefully. This is an important story. We're sitting there, and there'd be 4 people, 3 of them and 1 of me. We're sitting there, and then a young Korean woman pops up, walks up to the table. Now remember, this is where you had the mothers trying to marry their children. She walks up, and they look at her a moment, and then she says 2 sentences. Only 2 sentences. She walks up and looks at them, and she says, now listen carefully. I told you, I remember things that people say. I actually remember exact sentences. What she says is 2 sentences, very short. I'm from the British Embassy, period. This is my husband, period. And then she walks away. Well, you can imagine what happened. I got hired because they thought, a woman that works at the British Embassy is not going to have an idiot as a teacher. So I got hired at Myeongji. And I was at Myeongji roughly for about 18 years until I retired at age 65. I told you again, age 65 was normal. But I got the Myeongji job basically because of your mother. Now there's something else. Talk about your mother. She actually wanted to get a master's degree. And I have to think a moment. Okay, now you had the U.S. military in Korea on Yongsan Post, which is Air Force. It was the Army. And they had what they called they had an educational program to the University of Maryland. Now, this is the United States system at that time. The United States system at that time wanted to provide education available to the enlisted people and the officers. So you had regular bachelor's degrees through the University of Maryland to get a bachelor's degree while you're a soldier. You went to night school, and then you could earn a bachelor's degree. But then they started having some master's programs. To get a master's course, they had several different other universities offering master's courses. Well, your mother decided she wanted to get a master's degree. And so the one she looked at the University of Southern California. So if you go into your mother's office, you'll see two diplomas on the walls. Number one is a diploma from her Korean University, and it's Youngsuk Park. And then she got a second degree, which is a master's degree of Youngsuk Harmsen. Notice she's Youngsuk Park and Youngsuk Harmsen. And one is Korean, which is Youngsuk Park, and the second one is Youngsuk Harmsen. So she went to University of Southern California on Yongsan, and when I say that is talk about night school and weekends, and she got a master's degree of University of Southern California. So she had 2 degrees with 2 different names, and it's posted on the walls in her office in Seoul. And so this is the point I'm making. That you look, now careful, this is what I'm saying, is you have to look at the opportunities that are available to you. And because that's why I didn't go back to from Korea.
And then I did the PhD from Seungkyungan University for social services.
Yeah, now see?
So my PhD is in social services.
So then your mother's got a bachelor's degree and a master's degree and then a PhD.
Yeah, I didn't fully finish the PhD, but I graduated PhD studies.
No,
all the credits. I didn't finish my thesis. I mean, dissertation.
You got to finish a thesis, which is a written report, and then after that you get the official PhD.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
it. That's it.